Hey guys, once again, MangaMatt here, and this will be, as promised, my return to a year-end wrap-up and sort of my own personal award system for manga that I've gotten and read through the year 2013, and what I liked and also what I didn't like. So, without further ado, let's take a look at some of this year's highlights for me. First up, we have Best Shonen, which, admittedly, this is an older series, and I got it this year, even though it's already definitely come out in its entirety, and it's Project Arms. Now, what did I like about this series so much that it really deserved the spot? It's mostly to do with it didn't do anything bad, and I know that's not necessarily a big accomplishment, but especially sometimes in shonen manga, that really is hard to pull off. Sometimes it's so well written and well constructed. The only thing I could really argue about it is possibly some of the art style. The art style is of this very kind of it's very angular. The character designs have these very narrow chins a lot of times, and a lot of the characters have like these very wide mouths, and I don't necessarily really like that as a design. Also, when the main character morphs into his monstrous form, I thought that design looked a little wonky. I can't really explain it in full detail, but it felt like it didn't seem to really fit, especially because the name of his monster is the Jabberwock, which is a creature from the Lewis Carroll Alice in Wonderland stories, which again, all of the main characters in here and the main villains all have a creature form that takes inspiration from the Lewis Carroll stories and modifies them into, these monster form weapons, and they all seem rather appropriate in some instances to the look of it. Like the White Knight looks like a knight. The other one, like the White Rabbit, I guess they had to take a lot of liberties with that, making it into this sort of weird pterodactyl thing, which I would be kind of upset with, but I guess it's better than if they made it a giant rabbit. Needless to say, I could go on the little nitpicks. The overall thing is that it works. They set up so many little things, and everything as it's revealed does hold significance later. Like, there is a legitimate reason why all of the characters have superpowers named after the Lewis Carroll short stories. It's not just some gimmicky naming scheme that the author just popped out of his head and thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, like, there's an actual in-story reason for that, and all of the other things. There's actually in-story reasons for everything. It's not just, hey, this is the way it is because, sort of. And I like that a lot. I attribute it a lot to the fact that there are two authors to this story. Ryoji Minagawa does do the writing and the artwork, but he's also assisted by Kyoichi Nanasuke, who I'm going to say probably helped with a lot of the plotting and everything to actually make the story flow as well as it does. And it really is an enjoying read. I've looked at some of the anime version of this, and if it does adapt everything properly from the manga series, I would actually say probably go and watch that, because it cleans up a lot of the heavy inking that is in here that does and doesn't work all the time. Next up, then, we'll look at Best Series for Kids. I always, I read comics when I was a kid. I read manga when I was a kid. I think that it's important that there is manga out there that kids can read and enjoy that are good, and I want to bring some of that to light. And one is definitely Pokemon Adventures. And I know that those of you that were fans of the anime with Ash and Misty and Brock would say, but that anime wasn't so great, or you'd say that it was good, but it doesn't really, it's not really challenging, and more so it's not necessarily faithful to the video game. And I would say that this remedies all of those complaints. I would say that yes, this is a more superior story in both the characters in it, the stakes, the fun liberties that it takes with the source material, and it actually ties in other things into it. Like at one point they actually do address the fact that in the video game, you can stop a Pokemon's evolution by pressing the B button while it's evolving, and in here they actually explain that in the Pokedex you can actually press a button and it gives off this frequency that prevents Pokemon from evolving, and so it's actually in story how that works. And I think those are fun little things to throw in. And also on top of that, just you see all of the little Pokemon and they're just drawn so well, and they've got such fun little personality, and I really like it a lot. Also, even the fact that like at the end of every volume you actually see kind of the progression of things. Like you actually see like this little map of where Red has gone in this volume. And what he encountered. You actually see like a growing development of Red and his Pokemon team, including their level and what moves that they've learned at that point, and it really makes it a more enjoyable experience for me, at least, in reading the series. And again, I'd say it's perfectly acceptable for little kids to read. There's nothing overly mature or inappropriate for children to read about it. Let's see. Next up, then we get the best new series coming out, and this one is for me the best new series for a lot of reasons. Of course, its quality in itself is no merit to its title here, but it's called No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular. Now, I'm just going to abbreviate this for future reference as I'm Not Popular. And I am aware that it's referred to in Japan by the shorthand Iwamote, but again, there could be people that aren't familiar with the series or anything that aren't really keen on referring it to its Japanese title and would rather. So I'm just gonna call it the I'm Not Popular. I'm Not Popular is the story of Tomoko Kurogi, and how she has a crippling problem with social anxiety, and also she's introverted, and she has severe frustration with appealing to boys. She's never really been out with a boy before, and she thinks that going to high school is really going to change that for her. And it's a lot of this very frustrating and sometimes difficult emotions, especially for some of us out there who may have gone through that ourselves and are reading it, and some of it may dredge up. But it's played as a comedy, and I think it works really well. This is a fairly short volume here, though, as you can see in comparison with say Viz here. I am upset at how small the volume is and how much they're charging for it. But again, you can buy it on Amazon for the $8.50 that I think it's really more worth to get. Also, another reason why I picked this is that there's very little comedy manga that gets translated over, and I understand why. It's because Japan likes puns. They really like puns and play on words. And the problem with that is that that's very language based. If you're gonna make a pun, it's got to work in the context of how you're saying it. And you can't really translate a pun. And even more so, it's even harder to rewrite the pun and then still make it work in the context of the situation from the story. You see what I mean? It's just a lot of work, and overall it may not be as funny as it started. But the good thing about this series is that it does tap into a very relatable scenario for people, and a lot of the comedy comes from situational humor, which again, that can be translated fairly straightforward. Like, she's uncomfortable with being in high school. That's not necessarily cultural, that's fairly universal. And I like that a lot. I also like that, again, it's a female protagonist. And also the fact that on top of it being a comedy, it's also a straightforward comic comedy. It's not a comic strip or the 4-panel strip. It's an actual ongoing storyline, which is also rare to find. And I just think that it's more of a unique and interesting look that I want more of. I want more of this kind of stuff to get over. Obviously, it may not, but when it does show up, I want to give notice to it. So there you have it. Let's see. Then next up here we get best seinen series, and this is again another one that just came out. This is Vinland Saga. What I really like about this story is one, again, the subject matter. It's about Vikings. You don't get stories about Vikings, much less comics and manga about Vikings. About the closest you get is Conan, and even then, I don't know if Conan's I really classify him as like a Viking. I mean, he titled himself as a barbarian. That and also there was the fairly well received comic series produced by Vertigo called Northlanders, written by Brian Wood, which I haven't read, but I have heard very good things about that series. But more about Vinland Saga. It's also about a little bit about America, because again, the title's name is Vinland, which during the Viking times, when Leif Erikson supposedly first discovered America, it was known as Vinland, or the land of plenty, or just a land that's very vibrant and full of vitality, and it's more kind of like a myth here. And right now we only get a very brief introduction with Thorfinn, the character on the cover here, and what's led to him joining this band of Vikings, including one Viking, the leader, who actually killed Thorfinn's father, and why he's willing to put up with being a part of this band of Vikings, given that understandable animosity. And it really does create this world, and there's so much detail and so much care and thought that's put into it to make it believable that I just really love it a lot, and I want to see more of where they go with it. And then moving on then, let's see, next we get best supplement material. This is with a lot of manga, it's never always like the best stuff that is the manga. Sometimes you get you get the people that go the extra mile and throw in a lot of extra fun goodies for you that really bring it home. Some that come to mind is I always love the extra bits in the XL Saga manga and the Kurosagi course delivery service. It's sort of like this extra little bit at the end, like the cherry on top. And none so is the cherry bigger and more juicy than in the Mysterious Underground Men, where we get actually a very devoted amount of the volume talking about Osamu Tezuka and some of his various inspiration and influence in his early art style and storytelling methods. And if you've ever been a fan of Tezuka, if you've ever been a fan of that old school, vibrant, kooky sci-fi kind of feel, this is a must-have for you, especially because Picture Box, who produced this volume, are currently having an half off everything sale. Everything in their store is half off. You can get it. It's free shipping. It's definitely worth the buy for this. Also, they have another one called Last of the Mohicans. That's also fairly decent and worth getting as well. Really like it a lot. Let's see. Then, moving right along. Then, most surprising series I got, which this one is Reiko the Zombie Shop, which unfortunately it was never completed. It ran for 6 volumes and then was, I guess, canceled. But what we got is all over the top, balls to the walls, crazy, gory insanity. I love the art style that's very reminiscent of Hideshi Hino. I love how sort of bubbly the main protagonist Reiko looks, and I love just how she solves her problems with zombies and fighting with zombies. And there's also lots of references to other horror movies and stuff, like John Carpenter's The Thing and Misery. And it's a lot of fun. It's goofy, it's trashy, but it knows it's trashy and you love it. It just really surprised me how much I really enjoyed it a lot. And again, if anyone can find me get me a PDF or something of a translated copy of the other 5 volumes of this, of volumes 7 through 11, I would highly appreciate it if you can. Alright then, moving right along, we have Best New Series. And Best New Series goes to definitely Attack on Titan, which... Best Continuing. This is Best Continuing Series, which, again, it's garnered all of the praise and accolades that could ever be bestowed onto any manga or anime series, and it is not without due cause. This really is as good as everyone says it is, and if you've been living under a rock and you're not heard about this, it's about a sort of dystopia future where mankind has been ravaged and plagued by these giant beings known as titans that wander around and eat people. And there's one last safe haven against these creatures in these large stone walls that encompass an entire city. And unfortunately, one day, a titan manages to bust open one of the walls, and it just ravages the whole place. And then eventually they recover somewhat, but it's also a following of the main characters, Eren and his crew, and how they are part of a group called the Survey Corps, which use these this special grapple gear that allows them to swing about like Spider-Man at high speed to maneuver around the Titans and kill them by attacking them right behind their neck, which is their only weak point. And it's just this bleakness, but in this bleakness there's also hope and salvation, and it's really different from everything else coming out. It's very dark, it's very visceral. IO9 described it as Walking Dead of anime, and they're not wrong. I immediately made that comparison myself. It's that kind of storytelling, and it's a good special kind of just injection needle of something different to an otherwise mundane and uninspired kind of going along kind of shonen manga anime that I've been seeing a lot of lately, and something like Attack on Titan coming out and stirring the pot a little bit, is always great and always appreciated with it. Let's see, then next up we get the Saddest to See It Go. This is those series that you read and then it finally ends and you're sad to see it go on. And for me, that is 20th Century Boys, especially considering that the last volume came out very early in this year, maybe I think February or March, and I've been getting and reading this series since probably 2008, close to 2008. So that's been a good 5 years of reading and following it. From the very first volume, I've been reading this series, and I have been loving it. It really does deliver on itself as the story of these guys who find out years later that the little games that they played pretend with have started becoming a reality. We pretend like, I'm a superhero and you're a supervillain. How are you gonna fight me? Oh, you're gonna do this evil anthrax thing. Well, I'm gonna find you and beat you. And then they find out years later that, oh wait, those little games we were playing pretend with, this guy is doing it really similarly, and it sparks them to have to try and retrace their steps in how they played this game as a kid, and then they find out it's also possibly connected to this new cult that's been forming, and who the leader of this cult is, and they're just trying to rack their brains, like who was there when we were playing pretend, who would know what we were doing, and would be eccentric enough to try and act on it. How do we stop him? How do we go about this? Do we call the police? Are the police in on it? Who can we trust? Who do you turn to? But at the same time, you gotta go for it. It plays on a lot of the suspense and mystery, but at the same time, there's a lot of this gumption and a lot of this over the top sort of bravado that the characters have, that they're sort of remembering and re-embracing that they had as kids when they pretended to be these heroes, and also in some places it's also a love letter to old anime and old manga. There'll be characters that'll just sort of dress a little and they look a little bit like these old characters that you remember, and it's just it really does all this as well as can be imagined. And it's just, if you don't want to read the manga, there's also a trilogy of live action movies that are perfect. The acting was perfect. The casting was perfect. They all look like the characters from the comic. It's really amazing. And it's a shame it's gonna go. I do hope that this eventually translates and brings over Urasawa's latest work he's been on, Bat Boy. But there's no telling really if that is the case. But let's see. Speaking of sad to see it go, here's a little bit of a lost lament. Worst series I read this year. Now, some of you that listen to my updates might be thinking that it would be Gantz. And the thing with Gantz is that, I didn't necessarily have high expectations. My expectations were low, but kind of grew a little and then just kept plummeting down. With this, I thought I would have had a higher expectation, especially when I read another of his works that came out this year, and at the same time I really enjoyed, and it was an earlier story, and this having come out later but worse is kind of baffling. the story in question is Lost World. Now, again, I'm referring to, of course, the Mysterious Underground Men. This, I believe, came out before this, but I like this one incredibly, and I despise this. And I think, again, the problem with the biggest problem with this is it's just boring. There's a lot of filler and a lot of stuff that just isn't happening. I mean, look at that cover. They're running away from a dinosaur. How could this not be the fun adventure? And even better, like this is a dinosaur after they fly from Earth to a faraway planet. So it's an alien dinosaur. But again, it's just so boring, and there's so many things that just go nowhere. Like the plot just jumps around and it meanders. It doesn't go anywhere. And when you finally do get to the dinosaur, you don't even want to care anymore about it. It's just like the fact that it takes like over 3/4 of the way in to actually get to the dinosaur stuff. It's just so weak, and I just hated it. Like, especially because, again, this is Tezuka. He should be able to do better than this, and especially because, again, Underground Men came out before Lost World, and it's fun. It's a kid builds a machine that drills to the center of the earth, and he runs into termite people who try to take over the world. And he also has a rabbit human sidekick. How is that not amazing? And I don't know where it went wrong. He said he had to rewrite it a few times. Clearly that's what it looks like it did. And it just didn't work for Lost World. To make a joke, Lost World should have stayed lost. Alright, well, enough of that ragging. Let's see. Then let's go to Best Shoujo. Now I know I'm doing these kind of not in any particular order. I guess I had the list kind of in order, but then I thought, maybe I'd do it, from least to most anticipated, and then I was like, screw it. So, Best Shoujo of the year, and this really might have been the pick for Best Single Volume of the year, but something else came out later, and I think it's more important that came out late, that came out for me than this particularly. And Best Shoujo goes to Heart of Thomas. And again, there's not a lot of big shoujo that comes out. There's not a lot of big standout shoujo that comes out, but something like Heart of Thomas comes out, and you just gotta get it. And this again is the story of a boy named Thomas who goes to a academy and finds out that there was a previous student there, and that he in fact looks very similar to the previous resident here, Thomas is the boy who the new student actually looks very similar to, and it's just all about exactly what goes on here. The fact that this kid actually moves in and becomes a part of actually goes to live with the class to the classroom and the dormitory room of a boy that Thomas actually was involved with, and sort of how he relates to that. It's just kind of this unrequited love. It also deals with sort of a taboo love, as this came out in the 70s, 80s, when it was still kind of a touchy subject to actually even address same-sex relations like that. And this cover is gorgeous. It's a translation by Matt Thorne, who does phenomenal work. And again, for a little extras in the back, you have the excerpt from Matt Thorne's interview with Moto Hagio and her influence in manga. And again, if you don't get shoujo, if you don't get yaoi or anything like that, I would still highly recommend this volume in your collection. Just with how well it's put together, its presentation, and again, the storytelling is great and wonderful. Let's see. Then before we get to what I would say is the crowning gold medal of my awards retrospective here. One more, which I also think is a fairly important one. I'm just gonna call this like the wild card manga because I want to give recognition to manga series and manga volumes that come out that don't fit into any particular genre, but still bear mentioning. This could fit into like a really good sci-fi manga or a really good horror manga, as the case is here. This is more of a horror manga, but it coming out, I think, is spectacular. And the one I'm picking is Kitaro by Shigeru Mizuki. And Shigeru Mizuki has actually gotten quite a few manga titles to come out in just the last couple years. And this is his most well-known series in Japan, Kitaro, known in Japan as Gegege no Kitaro, and the TV series, which is also a Graveyard of Kitaro. I don't know which one is which. I think I mixed those around. The manga is called Graveyard of Kitaro. But needless to say, it focuses on a small boy by the name of Kitaro, and he is, I believe, half yokai. And yokai is just a catch-all term for demons and supernatural beings that inhabit Japan. And they can range from any kind of small little dust bunny spirit thing to like these giant monster whale Sasquatch monsters, but it's just they're all called yokai. And it's interesting with the stories involving Kitaro because he's very much not of our world anymore. He's more of a go-between between the human and the yokai. He's more like if a person comes up to him and they have a problem involving yokai, Kitaro will come in and sort of help sort it out. But if you ever try to cross him, he will mess you up. One good example here was when Kitaro, these guys wanted to challenge Kitaro to a baseball game, but because they wanted Kitaro's special bat that always hit home runs, but then Kitaro said, "Okay, well, we'll play a game. If you win, you get my bat, and if I win, we kill you and take all your souls, and I get to form my own baseball team made up of entirely yokai demons." And again, it's silly and fun, but at the same time, he will kill all those children if he wins. Now, the way it's resolved at the end isn't so bad. I'm not gonna say it because I do think it's fun. There's also some other great stories in here, including one time here where Kitaro actually faces off against some Western yokai, as he refers to them. Basically, they're all the Universal movie monsters and any other kind of monsters from Western mythology, like Dracula, the Wolfman. There's a witch in there. It was kind of this fun kind of monster mash battle royale, East versus West type thing. And then even better, there's a story at the end where near the end where Kitaro actually gets mutated into this giant whale Sasquatch creature and starts destroying the city, and they create a mechanical version of him to fight back against him, a la Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which was also very entertaining. It's more like a greatest hits collection of Kitaro rather than an actual straight-up publishing of all of his stories, which I guess that works better because there would be about like 8 of these, and I'd highly doubt if this first volume even made that many copies of it. Needless to say, though, it's definitely worth picking up if you're a big horror fan. There's definitely a feel of like those old EC horror comics and kind of how the villains would get some kind of ironic comeuppance or anything like that. And also, it's just a great introduction to the yokai demons, which are an important part of the Japanese supernatural kind of pop culture thing, which you'll see in like Nura, Rise of the Yokai Clan and such. And also, I think it's fairly economically priced at retail $25, but you can definitely get it cheaper on Amazon. So, okay, what did I think was the best single volume of the year? And for me, that's the volume that I think was the most important to come out, that was the best done, and just everything about it I liked. And that one would be Osamu Tezuka's Unico. Now, of course, hey Matt, you're picking some little kid manga about a unicorn. Yeah, I am. What's your problem? What do I love about this volume specifically is, one, this was Kickstarter funded, so this is a volume that otherwise may not have ever seen an actual English release of it, if not for people like myself who were so devoted to seeing something like this come out. Also, again, like I said about Pokemon, there isn't a lot of kid-friendly manga out there to really come out. I mean, even something like Dragon Ball, you could argue as to whether or not that's even appropriate to show to a child, because, I mean, in Japan, there's certain differences between what they can and can't show kids, but here in America, like, if you have a little comic of where a girl, flashes her breasts, even if it's for a gag joke, I mean, parents would kind of scoff and, put it aside and not really give it to their kids. But something like Unico, I mean, it's just this pure, wholesome, good, magical fun, and it really works, and it's just really well put together. And even more so, it's perfectly approachable for kids and for non-manga readers, in the sense that, one, it's in full color and full gorgeous color. They did a complete facelift on the coloring for this manga release, and everything in it just looks gorgeous. It really does make you wish that like more manga would come out in full color. And the main reason for this, and also the main reason why this manga is in left to right format instead of the standard right to left, is because this was originally published in the magazine for Sanrio, the company that owns Hello Kitty. They put this comic in their magazine. So for all of you out there that would complain that it's flopped, nope, this is one of the rare instances where the artwork was always intended to be read left to right. So you don't have to complain about preservation of artwork and such. And it's just, it really does, it shows what you can put out there, and it's also just great storytelling, just with this classic kind of fantasy feel. There's wizards and witches and castles and kings. There's like a futuristic one. They also encounter like a sphinx. It's just, there's all these different little stories in here, all these different adventures that little Unico goes on, and it's friendship and magic, and it really is a ton of fun, and I absolutely loved it a lot. And I think that everyone could really get something out of reading this volume itself. And And that's why I picked this as the best single volume to come out this year. It's the best for people to pick up and read to their kids or read themselves. It looks pretty. It's a marvel that it even came out looking as good as it does, and I'll really like it reading and rereading it a lot. So there you go. Those are my choices for this year, and I more than happily look forward to everything I get in the years to come. So Happy New Year and Merry Christmas from MangaMatt.